Hello and welcome. My name is Melissa Kane, and I'm here to talk to you today about 4 strategies to help cope with the demands of parenting a child with extra or special needs. I am an associate professional counselor here in the state of Georgia. I am also on the board of directors for the Georgia chapter of Postpartum Support International, where I currently serve as the communications chairperson. It's an honor for me to serve on this board and help bring this episode to you tonight. And on a personal note, while I'm here professionally, I'm also a mom myself. I have two children. And truthfully, when I became a parent a little over 11 years ago, I learned so much about how challenging and how stressful that transition of parenthood can be for some parents, including myself. And really reflecting back and realizing how some of the challenges I faced back then would have been so great to have the support that we're able to offer everyone through this Facebook Live series. Truthfully, my first child, my son, he was a high needs baby. He required a lot. He was very demanding, and it was really difficult for me, and has continued to be difficult, truthfully, for me and my family as he's gotten older, and have watched him struggle with things that might be a little bit easier with typically developing children, and just really reflecting on that toll that has taken both on my child, but also on myself and my family. And so this topic is very near and dear to me, both personally and professionally. And so I hope that will come across as I talk to you tonight, that I can really empathize with perhaps what's going on with a lot of you that might be watching. And so just a little bit about the Facebook Live series. I hope by now you all have been watching at least a few of our other episodes. I can't believe it. This is actually our 21st episode. It's a tremendous accomplishment. But for me, as I've looked back through or watched some of those episodes, what I really notice is this theme of parenting is hard. It's stressful. It's overwhelming. And there's so many different factors that go into that transition that can apply. And so if you haven't had a chance to view some of those episodes, I encourage you to go back onto our Facebook page and click on the video library and just kind of scroll through the different topics and see what might be interesting to you, because there's some really great education there. But in terms of tonight, I think about how those challenges are there for most parents. And when I say parents, I mean not just moms, also dads, other caregivers, grandparents, etc. It really affects the family unit. But I think about those struggles, and then I think, when you're a parent who has a child with special or extra needs, you have those struggles, but then you also have a whole other set of challenges that might be unique to your family. And that really can affect your emotional and mental health in so many ways. And so it really is important to find some tools and some strategies for coping with that. And just to be clear, when I'm talking, and I'm going to use the term special and extra needs, maybe high needs or medically fragile, I'm really talking to any parent. I'm certainly not here to define what special needs means, because here's the truth. If your child is struggling in any way, I know that you're struggling too. And so I'll let you define what that means to you. And of course, we're talking about all disabilities and all abilities. There's certainly those physical limitations that can be seen, motility issues, chronic medical illnesses, developmental or neurological illnesses, but also some of those invisible illnesses that parents might be, helping their child through, something that maybe they were born with, and it's something that they're going to have to take care of throughout their child's life, or maybe something that's just recently presented itself for an older child and they're just struggling with that new diagnosis. Or maybe you had a child in the NICU and the future is uncertain. Either way, this is something that can challenge a family across the board. So let's go ahead and jump right in. The first strategy that I want to talk to you is about connecting not isolating. So let me say that again. Connect, don't isolate. Many parents feel isolated in general. And from everything that I know and the work I do and the research that I've done, parents who have a child with special needs, they're even more isolated and underserved than a child who might be typically developing. It can be really hard to see those other families around you that seem to be having just an easier or a happier time, and you kind of start to withdraw and feel like you can't relate anymore. I'm thinking about the parent who might quite literally not be able to leave the house. If your child has a physical or a motor limitation, taking them out to a playground or to a play group just might not be worth it. It might be really challenging. Maybe you're not sure if you're going to take them to a friend's house, if their needs are going to be accommodated or not. And so you just decide to stay home. Or if your child is immune compromised and, now we're entering cold and flu season, and you really can't risk taking your child out to the general public. So it's just easier to stay home. But then there's also those invisible isolations. Maybe you are forcing yourself to get out there and go to a new parent group, but instead of relating to the other parents and kind of getting that support you so badly need, you find that you're spending your whole time tending to your child. Or maybe you're just focusing internally on the differences between your child and the other child that's at that particular group or in that particular environment. And so instead of making connections and making new friends and being able to ask for support, you're kind of just internally withdrawing and focusing on those differences. Just really remember that you're not alone. And I know that sometimes it can feel like you're the only person that's dealing with these kind of challenges for your child, but I promise you that you're not. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. But I do know how easy it can be to kind of skew towards that side of withdrawal when it can just be easier sometimes. And so I'm going to offer a couple of strategies to help make those connections. My first is, rather than try and force them in places that maybe just aren't working anymore, maybe you have a group of college friends or a group of coworkers that all had children on the same age. So naturally they're inviting you to go do things with them. But like I said earlier, maybe when you go, you end up feeling worse. You feel like, I can't really talk about the challenges I'm going through because maybe they won't be able to handle it, or maybe they won't know what to say and they'll judge me. So I just won't go. So let's start with where you're at. Let's try to make those connections in the places that you're already at. One suggestion I have is maybe you are at your son's occupational therapy appointment every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. and you start to see some of the same faces. And maybe you just typically sit there and read a book or, kind of just focus on the magazines in the lobby, which is okay if that's, taking time to yourself. But that might be a good opportunity to step outside your comfort zone and make a connection with another parent who's there, because chances are they're probably going through some of the same struggles you are. So my challenge to you is try to make at least one connection next time you are out and about with your child. And again, if that's a therapist's office or a doctor's office or some other place that you find yourself on a regular basis with your child. And if you're the kind of person who's maybe a little bit more introverted or doesn't feel as comfortable approaching people that you don't know, I think it can be helpful if you have a couple of strategies or a couple of scripts in your back pocket. Maybe write down one or two kind of conversation starters. So when you find those opportunities, you won't feel like you're fumbling. I always find that people love a compliment or a question about themselves. People love to talk about themselves. So, maybe it's something as superficial as, wow, I really like that bag that you're carrying. It seems to hold a whole lot. Where'd you get that? Or, oh, I've noticed that your son goes to the same therapist mine does. What do you guys think about it? And, maybe that one interaction won't yield a best friend, but it's a start. And maybe next time you go there, that smile across the waiting room will turn into a conversation. And I'll tell you that parents of other special needs kids are the ones that are really going to be able to give you those tips and places to go. They're the ones that are going to know what playgrounds are the best ones to go to. They're the ones that are going to be able to tell you about the secret or private social media groups that maybe you're not able to find on your own. The other suggestion in that vein is, Facebook, it's got some limitations, and I think that it's got some concerns, but in this case, it can actually be a real asset. So I encourage you to look for at least one, if not two, online Facebook groups or social media groups that you can join. And I think it's not so much important that you find a group specific to your child's disability or medical condition. I'm more interested in finding other parents that are dealing with the same type of challenges in their family, and really connecting at that level. At the end of this chat, I'm going to go ahead and post a few resources, including some specific Facebook groups in the comment section. So I encourage you to log back on if you don't see it before you tune out tonight. And also, I really want to ask if you know of any resources, please go ahead and put those in the comments, because we're all going to benefit from those. The second strategy that I have is a really important one, and that's don't put yourself on the back burner. With most of the time and attention focused on your child, it's so easy to forget about our own needs. And it's so incredibly important that we do take care of ourselves, because, after all, if we don't, who's going to? I saw this quote the other day, and it really resonated with me. It was, parents of a child with special needs need more support than a child or a family of a child who's typically developing, but unfortunately often receive less support than that family. And it's so true, right? We end up being the primary caregiver. We're not able to rely perhaps on family as much because maybe they can't handle your child's needs, or maybe your funds are limited, time is limited. Instead of having any free time to do anything with your friends, you're, taking care of doctor's appointments, or, looking for different accommodations for your child. So I understand that there are some limitations, but I also think that there are some creative ways to help you get that support that you need. I also recognize that oftentimes you may find that you've been thrust into this role of like Dr. Mom or Dr. Dad. Who knew that becoming a parent meant that you had to get a medical degree in something? So it's really easy to get kind of caught up in that research mode, to feel like you can't ever let your guard down. We call it hypervigilance, but it really means like not being able to ever let that guard down, always feeling like you are on guard, looking for the next problem, the next thing that's going to kind of come your way. And so to get ahead of that, you kind of can get caught in that trap of research and kind of finding all of those pitfalls. But being in that constant state of worry and increasing those feelings of anxiety, it affects our bodies in physical ways, in psychological ways, physiological ways, of course. There's just so much research out there that shows the reaction that our bodies have on that stress response. So finding ways to really mediate that is really critical. So some strategies I have to try and take care of yourself, even when, there might be some limitations. Of course, I'm a therapist, so I think that therapy is a really great place to start. And I really want to mention that when you think about therapy or a therapist, a counselor, try not to think of it about having a diagnosis or having a mental health disorder. Therapists are also here to help you through some stressful times. And so it's about protecting your emotional wellness and just having that person that you can go and process what's going on in your life. You can't always turn to, let's say, your partner or your parent, because they've got a vested interest in what's going on, and you might not want to pile on to what they're already going through. So having that third party that you can talk to can be really, really helpful. And they also will help you understand what you're experiencing. They're going to help you identify how some of those anxieties that you're experiencing are manifesting in yourself in your day-to-day life. But, if a counselor is not available to you, there are some things that you can do to really kind of practice some self-care. Um, you know, Here's some strategies that I have for you. One is what I was talking about a minute ago. It's so easy to get caught up in that research mode. Perhaps you leave a doctor's appointment and the doctor mentions a new therapy that they could do. They talk about a complication that you might have to look out for. So what do? You go home, you pop online and you hop on Dr. Google, and next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you probably don't feel like you've found out anything more. In fact, you probably have opened up like 2 or 3 other challenges that you didn't even think about. And so not only have you stayed up late, you're exhausted, and you're no closer to having any more information. It's really hard to kind of turn that off. So some strategies to help avoid that. One is to set some limitations for yourself. Say, I'm only going to allow myself 15 to 20 minutes to research this particular topic. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set a timer on my phone. And when that timer goes off, I'm going to close my computer. I'm going to write a couple of notes of things that I still want to look into. And then I'm going to set another time for myself tomorrow, or maybe the next day when I can go back on and look. Another idea I have is to appoint someone in your life who can do that research for you. Ideally, someone who's really research minded, or someone who's extremely organized and can take information and kind of funnel it down for you. Ask them, hey, I really want to research this topic, but I'm not sure that I can be able to do that. So would it be okay if I came to you and had you research this for me? And then you can put it into a couple of really quick bullet points, maybe some questions that I need to go back and ask my doctor. But that's a really great way to kind of contain that anxiety and contain that within yourself. Also, I challenge yourself to find small ways throughout your day that you can protect your mental health. Now, I could probably spend 2 days talking about coping strategies and anxiety reducing strategies, but just in essence of time, I'm going to focus on some small things that you can do in the moment. And it's about clearing out that bucket. If you think about stress throughout your day, anxieties throughout your day and your week, it's like you have a bucket and you kind of start slowly filling it up. Every challenge you have, every argument, every disappointment, it just keeps filling that bucket and bucket up until all of a sudden that one thing happens and it just, right? The whole thing just spills over. So whatever you can do throughout your day or throughout your week where you can kind of bail out just a little bit of that is going to set you up for a little bit more success. I really love some of the great apps that are out there right now. The hot word is meditation, right? And if you're like me, you think meditation, I don't have an hour to sit in a room and chant, or I don't have an hour to sit in the room and just listen to my own breathing. But meditation is more than that. And there's some really great tools out there that you can download for free and give yourself 10 minutes every day. My challenge to you is give yourself 10 minutes every day for 7 days that you are going to download an app and commit to listening to some kind of a meditation or some kind of an anxiety specific meditation every day, whenever it makes sense for you. I mean, even if you have to put your headphones on when you're driving your son or your daughter to school, that's okay. We're working with what we have right now. Two that I really like, that I recommend all the time, are Calm, CALM, and the other one is Headspace. And again, I'll put all of this in the comments at the end. But if you download those, there's a lot of really great free options on there. And just follow that. Another idea, if you're not familiar, is called respite care. And there are some organizations out there where you can hire someone, because again, you might not can't just go to your teenage babysitter down the street and have them come watch your child sometimes. But maybe you can hire a professional, maybe a medical professional, even a nurse or someone who's trained, and they can come and they can sit with your child for an hour or two. So you and your husband or you and a friend can go out to dinner. They also sometimes will offer like evenings night out where you can bring your child there. So just, we'll help find some local resources for you too, and just know that that could be another option for you to be able to get that time to yourself. Thirdly, the strategy I have is specific to your partnerships, and that is to strengthen your partnerships because, if you are in a committed relationship, your partner is going to be a really great asset to your family and to you. And so putting a little bit of effort into trying to strengthen that is going to serve both your child as well as yourself. And, the statistics are pretty scary. Families with a child or children with an extra need or a special need, they have a higher divorce rate than parents of typically developing children. I found some kind of differing results, so I'm not going to quote any today because I don't want to misspeak. But needless to say, the theme is that the rates are higher and the amount of unhappiness and distress within a couple is higher. So that parenting stress related to your child's, additional demands, it's real. And it puts a strain on the family for a variety of reasons, right? Families are stretched really thin. They're dealing with complicated emotions. Maybe it's bringing up something for you from your own past that is different than what your partner is experiencing, financial strains, time constraints, etc. So I have some strategies to help really take care of your relationship, regardless of, what kind of relationship that's in. The first is that even if you are having disagreements in care for your child, so for example, perhaps you and your partner are at odds about medical interventions. Maybe you want to kind of really aggressively go in and try something new, but yet your husband or your partner is kind of like more in a wait and see type of a mode. And so you start to kind of find that crack going in that relationship, and you get further and further apart and nobody's really listening to one another. My strategy is to find the similarities in your disagreements. Maybe you disagree on the medical interventions or the approach to take, but I bet if you looked at what the other person's intent was, I think you might find that in reality, you both want the same things. You both want your child to have a healthy and happy life. You just have differences of how to get there. So really taking a step back and focusing on those similarities might allow you to sort of move forward and not be kind of deadlocked in some of those big decisions. Also making an effort to really comfort one another at the end of a really emotionally exhausting day. Finding space every day, even if it's just 10 minutes after you put the kids to bed, to sit on the couch together and watch a show, maybe, little Netflix binge, or you're even just going to read next to one another. But the idea is that you're going to be really intentional in finding at least 10 to 20 minutes every night, if possible, to reconnect. And if you find that those cracks are getting deeper and deeper, perhaps looking for some professional counseling, a marriage and family counselor could be really helpful so that you can get back and have some tools to parent together, because parenting together is always going to be more beneficial for the child than trying to do it separately and at odds with one another. Another quick tip that I have is just something called a reverse date night. So even if you're not able to get a babysitter and go out somewhere, maybe you have a caregiver take your child out for the night and go take them to get their favorite treat, and you and your husband or you and your partner just stay in for the night and put on your pajamas and just rest and relax without any distractions. That can be really helpful. And then lastly, and this is a really important one, please give yourself space and time to grieve any losses that you've experienced throughout this process. You might find yourself mourning the loss of the child you envisioned that you would have. And, oftentimes when those feelings come up, we just kind of shove them down because we feel guilty. But it's okay to grieve these losses. They're real. Guilt has no place here. Grieving allows you to process that loss, any of those expectations that you might be holding on to, You know, if you always envisioned the family that you thought you were going to have when you were a young child, or when you were pregnant and you watched, you know, your other family members or your friends having children, and you just assumed that's what your experience was going to be like. And so with that experience, you created these expectations. There's nothing wrong with that. But yet maybe your life didn't turn out the way that you had planned. And it's so important in that healing process to allow yourself that space to grieve that loss, just as you would a physical loss. This type of emotional loss is real. And it's possible, to feel disappointed and also love your child at the same time. Feeling disappointment and grieving that loss doesn't mean that you love your child or your children any less. It just means that you're giving yourself that place to kind of process whatever feelings are coming up for you. And to remember that sometimes new challenges that come up or milestones, I'll hear parents will talk about their child's birthdays being another milestone that kind of brings that grief up again. This is a year that I thought my child would be doing X and they're not. I thought I was doing okay with this, but it's bringing up again for me. So finding ways to, really process that grief and realize that, it's okay. This is not maybe the life that you expected. And it doesn't mean you love your child any less, but with, the right support and the right support system, you will have a good life and you will be able to support your family in that way. So, whether or not that is with a professional to really do some grief work, or working with a really good friend who can sit and empathize with you, I think that's a really important strategy to look at. And I, just really encourage you to, look out for that support wherever you can find it. And I'm going to, again, like I said, in a few minutes, I will go ahead and post some links in the comments. I encourage you all to put any tips or suggestions or links that you all have. As people tune in later, these will be great resources for them. Just want to see if there's any comments. I don't think so yet. So I'm going to go ahead and tune off for tonight. But again, I'll be monitoring this and can respond if anyone has any questions at a later time. And I just thank you so much for watching tonight. I hope you really enjoyed the video. And if you think that it could be helpful for anyone you know, please tag them on it, like it, share it, anything you need to get the word out. I hope that you'll please join us again. Our next Facebook Live episode is going to be in 2 weeks. So that's Tuesday, November 6th at 9 p.m., where we are going to be covering the topic of depression during or after adoption. It's going to be a really great topic, and I hope you'll tune in. Have a great evening, and remember, you are not alone. You are not to blame, and with help, you will be well. Thank you so much, and have a great night.